What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Patros Podcast, where we're embracing healthy masculinity. And this is an extremely special episode because we're going to be highlighting a trip that Man Up. It's really part of our DNA because it's connected to international. And this time, we have a few of the men of Man Up who brought their kids along with them. So we're going to be talking to them, talking to the kids, of course, respecting everybody's time so that the kids can get back to their homework. But first of all, I'd love to introduce everybody other than Jeff, because you guys already know Jeff. So we'll do that after. But let's start with Jason and I'm sorry, is your name Kylie? Kylie?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let me do that over. All right, so let's start with Jason and Kylie. Yeah, how'd you guys get started? What was the conversation like about going on this trip?
Yeah, I'll go first. And Kylie, you fill in the gaps here. I've been fortunate to go on this trip twice, 2019 and 2021. And I still remember when I was on the mountain at the top, summited on 2021. And I said to myself, hey, you've done this twice. You're good. This was really hard. You do not need to do this again. Finished. Done. Other adventures to take on. And, at that time, 2021, Kylie, you would have been 8 years old, I think, at that time. And fast forward 3 years later, last year. And Kylie, what did you say to me?
I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
She wanted it. And I'm not in the business of telling my little girl no. No. We did it, yeah. And at this age, 12 years old, I mean, Raul, Jeff, and I had a chance to talk about this. What a foundational adventure and opportunity to springboard off of. So that was a pretty easy yes for me. And Kylie.
Yeah, Kylie, what was it? What made you just be like, hey, this is the year I want to do it this time?
Well, my friend at school wanted to go too, and
Okay.
we both really wanted to go. And I was always want to go on different adventures, and I wanted to spend more time with my dad.
Oh, that's a tearjerker right there.
Yeah.
Oh, Raul and Atlas, can you guys introduce yourselves and what that conversation was like for both of you?
Yeah, I'm Raul Serrano. He's my son Atlas, and I was on the first trip with Jason and Jeff and a handful of other guys. And on that trip, this was 6 years ago, I remember coming home, and Atlas was almost 5 at the time, and he asked me how the mountain was and the trip, and I said, buddy, I just wish that I could do this with you one day. That would be just so cool. I just kind of made that comment. I forgot that I had made that comment. And in our household, every child gets a 10-year-old trip. So they get to choose a trip with dad when they turn 10. So as we got closer to that trip, I kept on asking, Alice, what do you want to do? And then I'll let you take it from here. What did you say?
Well, I wanted to go to Egypt first, but then we realized that Tanzania, where Kilimanjaro is right by it, and I've always wanted to climb it ever since my dad got back. So my dad said, hey, why not go on and climb Mount Kilimanjaro?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love how all the kids are just go-getters with this, wanting to travel, So now, Jeff and Asher, I want to hear from you guys.
Well, of course, I went with these guys in 2019 and 21, and then did it in 23. Man Up does it every other year. And I remember when Jason said, I'm never doing that again. And quite frankly, I was like, yeah, me neither. That was hard. I don't want to do it again either. And, 2023 comes around, and I got people saying, oh, you should go. Actually, I think Serrano was supposed to lead that one. Weren't you?
Yes.
And then you had knee construction like an old man. The reconstruction surgery on your knee. So I got roped into doing that one. And, Atlas and Asher are growing very close. And so when it was coming up again, and Serrano was going to lead that one, buddy, why did you want to go? I think there are multiple reasons, but.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, the main one would be Atlas. And then, Atlas, me, and my dad. And then Mr. John. Those are probably the reasons. We had good people that we know that we're going to go. It's the time we get to spend with them, my dad, and then like Atlas, because Atlas said, I think it was like maybe a week before, Atlas was like, yeah, I'm going. So I was like, yeah, can we go? And then Mom said yes. So it was awesome. You got to get past
That's
that.
awesome.
Mom, yeah.
So I'm curious, as far as from the kids, what's probably like your biggest thing that you learned from spending time with your dad on the mountain? Well, let's start with Kylie.
Well, I learned like that my dad's always there for me, like whenever I need him. Like no matter like where I'm at or like what point in the trip I was at, I knew that like my dad was there when I needed him.
Cool. And what was your, like, if you could choose one favorite highlight of the trip, what would it be?
Well, probably just spending time with my dad and like the views from the mountaintop, looking over like all of like the places down below us.
Do the pictures do it justice, or was it like way better than anything you saw in pictures?
It was way better than all the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
Allan,
you.
there's something about having hot chocolate on, the summit of Mwenzi
Yeah.
while looking over at Kibo on Kilimanjaro, and it's like the perfect temperature, and getting to be with your child,
Yeah.
experiencing God's creation, pretty extraordinary. By the way, it's not lost on me the fact that Kylie did this because she wanted to spend time with me, and I'm taking this Zoom call from a hotel room in New York City. Yeah, case in point, but it was awesome.
Well, you stacked
Yeah,
time on the mountain, right? A lot of QT.
and that chocolate does taste different at like what, 16,000 feet?
Oh, they've got this popcorn and this hot chocolate that they bring up, and yeah, what's Mwenzi? What is that? 17?
Yeah. It's 17.
No, I don't remember. It's high.
About
It's really
15.
So you've earned your hot chocolate at that point for sure.
Yeah, what's your hot chocolate?
What about
recipe,
you,
though?
Atlas? What would be like your biggest takeaway just from spending time with your dad on the mountain?
Probably that your dad is always there to carry you, kind of the same, because like I think at the third or fourth day I started feeling sick and I didn't eat enough, so I couldn't walk that much, and my dad put me on his back and started carrying me up.
Wow. Look at Raul go. And that just shows that surgery on your knee just helped.
That's right.
You're able,
Jeff can say all he
you're able
wants
to
about that
perform.
knee, but it was strong that day.
Hey, it was probably stronger than it ever was before. A bionic knee.
And Atlas, was your favorite part the view too, or was there another part of the trip that you were just like loved and it was a big highlight for you?
Probably the dancing too, because every time after, like, it would kind of inspire you, because they would start singing and you would dance, and usually they would carry us on their shoulders and like dance, and we would dance with them.
So,
Where
so
was the dancing at? Are they dancing on the mountain, or is this before or after?
Every time, like I think one night we did it before the walk, but usually in the afternoon when we finish our walk to like celebrate, we all huddle up and sing and dance.
yeah.
No way. That's awesome.
So
I'm
typically,
so jealous right now.
yeah, typically at the end of every hiking day, you're tired. You've gone a long way, and then you get into camp, and you're just tired, and then they start singing and pumping you up. So it's like it reinvigorates you, and you're
No
like, yeah, this
way.
is neat. So that was pretty cool, and that's all
So
the
you just
hell.
get like a second wind and start dancing?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. Asher, what did you learn from Mr. Ford?
What did I learn from him? The most thing I learned from him was like he's there to guide you. So like I think it was we were at like 16,000. Yeah, it was bad. I was like stumbling all over the place. So he would like put his like pole in front of me so I wouldn't fall on the mountain. He would like literally stick it in front of me. And then he was like, yeah, that's how he guided me, is sticking this pole in front of me. Help me stay on path. You can't do it for
Just
you.
guiding him along the way.
So yeah.
And then what was your favorite part, Asher?
So after our trip in Tanzania, we flew to Ethiopia. So after we went and met my mom, my Ethiopian birth mother. So that was probably my favorite.
Yeah, I saw that video, bro. That was a beautiful moment. I gotta say, it was really touching.
Yeah, she's a great person. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Do you wanna talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, we went to Ethiopia. We met with some of the guys in Ethiopia. Like the first day we were there, we met the amp cohort. And yeah, we saw I think maybe like 12 guys. We had lunch with them. We met with Sammy, Big Sammy. Yeah, my dad's been working with him for like 12 years. They've been doing like amp cohort, which the amp they help men start businesses, help men have better marriages, and help men succeed in life. So yeah, we met with them, and then after that, we drove south to meet my mom. So that was a very cool experience.
That's awesome. I know that the kids are probably gonna have to go soon for homework. So before they go, dads, I want you to maybe just take a second. I'm sure you guys do this all the time in private, but just something to affirm your kids publicly and just let them know what you saw in them, what you even learned from them, or just what you treasured about your trip. Because I think it'd be awesome for so many people to understand how much you guys even benefit from spending time with your kids and not just them looking up to you. Jason, I'm down to start with you.
All right. Well, Kylie, I shared this with you when we were at whatever it was, 17.5 and flipped it around, that I am incredibly proud of you, not just for what you did on this trip, but just what you do in life. And I love you so much. And it doesn't matter what you accomplish. We could have made it 1 foot or 0 feet. And that would not change how much I love you. So whatever you accomplish in life, you accomplished a lot on this trip. And whatever mistakes you make in life, whatever failures you have, it's not going to change how much I love you and how much I support you. And in some ways, walking up this mountain alongside you, behind you, is how life's going to be as well. I'm going to be beside you every step of the way, no matter what. When we're going down the right path, maybe someday if we go down the wrong path, I'll be there regardless with you. And that's what my biggest takeaway is, that it just affirms that. And Allan, I would also say getting to spend 2 weeks with one of your children, complete. I've never been able to do it, never. And to have 2 weeks straight with any of your kids is an incredible blessing. And Kylie, getting to spend it with you, I mean, I knew how special and gifted you are, but it just cemented it for me. I just underscored it. And man, it was so fun spending that time with you. And I can't wait to do it more.
That's so beautiful. Which one of the other two of you want to go next? Raul, you got it?
Yeah, I got it. Similar vein as Jason, but for me, there was a moment, just like Atlas said, he kind of two things. Number one is he had gotten almost 36 hours throwing up, not eating, and he still was powering through. And so I just saw in you, Atlas, just this mentality of this toughness that's inside you, which I love seeing, because in life there's going to be tough times and you're going to have to push through some things. So I'm so proud that you can do that. I'm so proud that you have that in you, because it's going to come in handy. But there came that time where I did put him on my back, and I remember I was getting tired, and he whispered in my ear, he said, "Dad, are you okay?" And at that moment, the first things that came out of my mouth is like, "Buddy, this is what dads do." Just like Jason said, "Hey, when you're down, I'm going to be here from you. When you're up high and you're flying high, I'm going to be here for you. And no matter what, I'm here." And same thing. I want him to know. I think he knows that now, that I love him, no matter what happens, what he does, and that I'm going to be here for him. And here to carry him until one day he's going to be carrying me, I told him. Right. And I also said, this is the model, right? When you have kids, I'm sure you're going to do the same for them. So that's my big takeaway, is just modeling what our Heavenly Father does for us, right?
Yeah,
He
that's
carries
good.
us no matter what. He's there for us no matter what. And I just want to be that model for him so he can model that for his kids. And yeah, I just think that's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
so
there's
proud.
something just real about that, like tangible. Like it's one thing to say it, but then just to physically go through that with your kid for 2 weeks, I can only imagine that solidifies those truths. That's awesome.
And I will say
Jeff.
one more quick
Oh,
thing.
you got it.
I remember maybe a couple of weeks after this trip, we had gone from the mountain. We go to Uganda. We visit some of our partners there, the orphans and orphanages. We visit the men, and it's early in the morning. We're doing breakfast before school, and he comes up to me. Atlas says, "Oh, Dad, we just have it so easy here." Right? And this is weeks after, a couple weeks after. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, remember those kids? Remember the mountain? Like all those things. And I'm like, yeah, we do have it pretty easy here. And I think it's a beautiful trip just to, yes, the mountain is hard and all that stuff, but I think the best and the biggest part of the trip is that second half when we do visit those men and those orphanages and the power that has and the stories that he was able to see and connect with and bring that back and I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but that's in there now, right, for him. So
Thank you for that.
Yeah, actually, on that note, I mean, Kylie, you're sponsoring a little guy now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell about who you're sponsoring.
I'm sponsoring a 4-year-old named David, and he's been deaf since birth. And it's like he has like no sign of communication or like he can't like talk to anyone.
Did you meet him on the trip?
Yeah, we met him on, I think it was like the 4th day of the mission trip.
Wow. And there was just an impactful moment for you to just also take him and want to support him.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that shows all of you out there that are listening, whether you're 13, 14, 15, or 25 or 60, you just obey Jesus when he puts somebody in front of you for you to be there for them. There's no age minimum or age limit. We can all do something. So thank you for modeling that, Kylie. That's really powerful. And Jeff, I wanted to hear from you as far as your affirmation to Asher.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before, but in the U.S., there's no coming of age ceremony. The Jewish culture has their bar mitzvah, and some African cultures, they just send you out into the bush and say, hey, come back in 3 months, you make it, you're a man. And there's just nothing uniformly that we have here. And so for us, it was, for me in particular, it was like, hey, this is your opportunity to become a man, right? And again, it's not, I mean, Asher didn't become a man on that mountain, but it was like, this is your rite of passage to, line in the sand that you can remember back and go, this is where I learned like manhood is hard. Adulthood is hard. Life is full of challenges and you have to overcome. And you do that through Jesus, and you do that through having people by you to assist you and to look to. And sometimes you're helping others and sometimes you need help yourself. And so all of those lessons that we're learning on the mountain were, the stuff that I wanted him to learn. But, like, Ashley, you were a good kid before. This kid, like, he's an amazing kid. And before we went on the mountain, he was an amazing kid. But I think being on the mountain and going through that experience, like, if I was looking for a kid to come back and kind of be a man, like, it couldn't have worked better, because he since he's been back, he's been different, like more responsibility, not making any excuses, like being kind to his sister, like just all of these things. And I have to say, like, he can have a million excuses, right? He's a black kid in a white home. He's an African kid in an American culture. And dude, you're crushing it. Like, you have no excuses. Like, life wasn't perfect for you, and you got the hand you dealt, and I don't even know your own heart. Like, if you wish you could have stayed in Ethiopia, I don't know. But all I know is, like, there's no excuses with you. You're like, no, this is where God has me, and I'm going to get it done. And I just love that about you, and I want to affirm that in you. And when we got to meet his mom, man, it was, you want to talk about tears. That was it's like top 2 or 3 moments of my life, to just be in there in that room and to see them connect. And man, I'm just so proud of you, like just for facing that moment. And you made a comment to me that you felt restored. And I'm just so proud of you. And I believe that God is going to do just amazing things in your life. Like, I just believe it. And maybe it's over in Ethiopia, maybe it's here, maybe it's in the NFL, maybe it's as a missionary, I don't know, but he's going to do amazing things, and I'm just really proud of you.
That's good.
So.
Well, before we dismiss the kids, I do want to say to you guys, this is beautiful because so when you grow up with your father, and a father that communicates the way that your dads are communicating to right now, sometimes we don't get to understand how rare that is, even in the United States, even people that grow up with dads that don't know how to tell them that they love them. So I love that you guys all have that, and that's beautiful. And I hope that this moment right here is something that men that are watching, that you would model that in your home, that you would take this week and take a moment to say to your children and affirm them in a way that they've never felt or understood or heard before, because that does build them up so much. And it's part of just being an intentional father. So thank you guys for sitting in and taking time away from your school night. I know y'all got to go to bed so that you can just be responsible. And then the dads will just stay and hang out for a little bit, chop it up. But thank you guys for telling us everything about your trip. I loved watching that. That was so cool. Just you guys with your sons and daughter, and just being able to not only doing it for, like, obviously people to see, but I know that you guys do that already. Like, you model that at home, because one thing that rang true was, like, your kids wanted to be with you. Like, it's not like you guys were trying to force them to go on this trip because you want to save face or do it for whatever reason, but like hearing your kids say, like, no, I want to go spend time with my dad. And the parallel that has to scripture, right? Like, when we understand how good a relationship with Jesus is for us, that we want to spend more time with him. I wanted to talk to you because each of you have been on the mountain more than once, right?
Yeah.
What is it, 2 or 3 times?
Yes.
Okay. Which time was harder, with your kid or without your kid?
I'll go. I mean, for me, it was definitely without my child.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when your kid is there, your focus shifts, right? And the focus is on them and not on what you're going through. So I think that played a big part, because everything you have, everything you have, you're not even worried about. You just say, hey, you're encouraging them, you're supporting them, like all that focus. And just like in life, when your focus is on you, things don't go very well.
Yeah.
But when you focus on others and serving others, that's where the juice is, right?
Yeah. Would both of you say the same thing?
100%.
Yeah. It's like there are different. What was harder physically without the kids, for sure, because you're pushing it. You summit, right? We didn't summit because all 3 of our kids turned around at various times. Although they all did great. Like, this was a 4.5-day hike up. They all went into day 4. I mean, it was they crushed it. They really did. But 19,341 feet is no joke. And of our, how many do we have? 18 people. 11 made it. 11.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to do, and they all frankly went further than I thought they would. I mean, it was really impressive. So the physical part was probably easier because we didn't have to get to 19,000 feet. Us,
Yeah, true.
but
So
also,
take your kids.
yeah, emotionally, thinking about and caring for another human being. That
Yeah.
Atlas said it well. moms had to sign off on this. And I don't know what your wives said to you, but my wife was like, do not kill my daughter. She better come back in really good shape. And so there's like an added, emotional and mental stress to just, it's not just the rest of the team, but it's your child, you're caring for and taking care of as well, making sure they're nourished and they're eating right and hydrating and doing all of those things, because you want them to do the best they can, because you know how foundational this experience is going to be for them.
Yeah, I mean these guys know all the kids struggled at different points and in different ways, but they all struggled like just physically because the altitude just there's no way to train for that, especially living here in Florida. And Asher was, I mean, he was a disaster at the end of day 3, and I'm like, there is no way that he is going anywhere from here. And he kind of rallied and then got sick again. And then, on the summit, he looked so bad. I mean, Juan, who was our filmmaker he came with us and recorded everything. He's like, I'm interested to see what your wife thinks about how your son looked. Because he's like, he looked bad. But like, that's the thing, right? Like, women and moms, their job is to keep their kids safe. And men, our job is to create environments where they can take risk.
Controlled risk. Yeah.
Yep. And that's exactly what we did. And so, you are trying to measure how much is too much. I want to make sure everybody is safe, but at the same time, I also want him to be able to push or her push, like, find your limits. Where are my boundaries? Because you don't know when you're that age. My son he could not remember ever throwing up. He had thrown up once in his life. He was like 3, maybe. He'd never thrown up. And at day 2, middle of the night, I guess, he throws up because the next day I look and I'm not talking a little puke. I'm talking puke everywhere, all over the inside of his bag, all of his clothes, all of his everything. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus, please. And so, I basically missed breakfast and everybody else is chopping it up. I'm in there cleaning up, crusted over puke with, wet wipes on a mountain. So it's like, but you know what? I didn't even think about it. I mean, I had a split second of, oh boy, boy. But you just like dive in, right? And you just start cleaning it up. You're doing the dad thing. You're like, I'm going to take care of this other person. So, to what Raul was saying, like, and Jason was saying as well, like you dial in for someone else. So I think physically much easier, but mentally, it was still hard, but it was a different kind of hard because you're thinking of somebody else the whole time.
Yeah.
Allan, I will say this. One of the things that all of these kids I saw in them is, just like Jason said, they didn't make it to the top, right? And they did amazing. And it's easy to turn back and kind of like feel defeated. And what I saw in all the kids was that they had a second of like, but immediately they're like, yeah, we're going to come back and conquer this. And I think that comes from an environment at home where they do feel loved. They are encouraged. They know that they can fail. They know that there's all these things that we do instill in a healthy home and healthy environment. That's why I think they're able to do that, right? And to say, okay, they can reframe that pretty quickly to say, no, this is not a failure. Like, we got here. We did things. We pushed through things. And yet we still want to come back and finish. Right? Like, how cool is that? Like, I just love that all the kids had that in them. And so anyways.
Yeah, there's something powerful
everyone else that was on the trip too, Allan. The rest of that group was so encouraging for these kids. If those kids ever thought that they didn't, and by the way, they did accomplish major things. Everyone else on that trip let them know how special they were, and the fact they even showed up and climbed 4 days to whatever 17,000 plus feet. And for Kylie specifically, one of my big concerns was she's a girl, and what am I going to do to support her? There were 3 women on that trip that just absolutely adopted her when you have to go pee on the mountain or do whatever. I was incredibly grateful for those 3 women. They were awesome.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. Just having like the whole group be so super supportive, and because it's one thing for your dad to be like, "You're doing a great job," but when people that have no reason to compliment or like encourage are doing it, I wanted to talk about because I mean, so many times you guys have probably heard this from people in your friend groups or that you're acquainted with, like, "Yeah, I want to take my kid on the trip, because we're just really struggling at home, and they just need to go on a trip and just learn and see." But really, the discipleship that happens is what what Raul just said, right? Like it's what's happening at home. Like this isn't a fix all 2 week trip that like, you're not being intentional at home. You bring them here and now you build this cool relationship. Like you guys are doing the groundwork at home and this is just the icing on top, right? Could you talk a little bit about what that looks like at home? Because you guys, it's not just these kids, you guys have other kids as well. And what does that look like? How are you guys intentional with your kids?
Yeah, I can go. I've got two, Jolie and Asher, both adopted. And I'd be interested. These guys both have adopted and bio, so they have a different
Yeah.
perspective, maybe. But for me, it is really about modeling. And I think a lot of men, even if they're going to be in a mentoring situation, they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to mentor. I don't." And it's like, bro, just do what you would normally do and just bring your kid with you. So for me, it's like, I'm going to read my Bible anyway. So, hey, why don't you sit down and read it with me? Right? Like, I'm going to pray anyway. So, hey, why don't we pray together? I'm going to go to Lowe's. Do you want to come with me? Like, there's no reason not to come with me. Just come with me. I'm going to Lowe's. You want to come? And it's just like, it's just that presence like that. I'm always there. Someone cuts me off in traffic. How am I going to respond? If we got a situation to flag football, like we did the other night, it got a little heated, how are we going to respond? And so when their kids see that, and I said this in Africa, and Jason and Raul both heard it, and I mean it 1,000%. I go up, and you're talking to some of the African men in our AMP cohorts, and making a joke like, "Hey, don't we look just like each other? Got the same haircut and everything." And obviously he's adopted, and but if you were to rip open our chests, right, like just rip open our chests and see what's on the inside, and look at our hearts, you'd see the same thing. You would see like a replica in this little 12-year-old of his dad, and right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Like it could be a terrible, a terrible replica, and he doesn't really have a choice because he's in my home, and that's where you have trauma and all these things that happen, right? Like that's in some regards, it's not the kid's fault. In some regards, right? Because he only knows what he knows. Of course, we all have a choice, and you have to overcome those, generational curses, but with my son, I just made it a point. You're going to do what I do. You're going to be where I'm at. And I've always treated him like an adult. I talk adult things to him. I treat him with respect. And when he acts like a kid, then I treat him like a kid. But most of the time he wants to be around adults. He wants to do adult things. And it's not like he's missing out on being a kid. I just think he's, he recognizes that manhood is a privilege, and he wants to be there one day. And yeah, he's learning and making mistakes along the way, but we're doing it together.
That's good.
Me? Yeah. Sorry, Jason. So the question is how are we at home laying the foundation, the groundworks, right?
Yeah, just being
And
intentional.
yeah, be intentional. So obviously, yes, what Jeff said. Yes to all of that. Modeling, what you do and who you are and why you do it, right? Our filter in our home is that we don't put God first. We put him center. He's in the center of everything. That's the lens and the filter that we look and view the world through. So yes on that. And if I get more kind of nitty gritty, it's time. Like you have to spend time together, individual time, right? I have 4 kids, so it becomes a little more difficult with 4 kids. You run a business, you have your wife, all these things, all these dynamics, and I think we have to be intentional about our time. So in our home, we do date nights with our kids. We date our kids. We have specific times on the calendar when it's dad and mommy, or it should be dad and mom time, dad and Atlas time, or dad and Asa, or whoever it is. And we don't miss those, because we have to have those times where we can have those one-on-one conversations with our kids. We want them to know that, hey, yeah, we have a big family, everybody's loved here, but you're loved as well as an individual. I think that's important.
Yep.
I think also that allowing them to fail is huge. And when they do make mistakes, like, you do what you say you're going to do. I think one of the biggest mistakes parents make is these kind of fly off the wall remarks like, well, we're not going to get you ice cream if you do that, or whatever it is, right? And I remember early on in our marriage, my wife tells this story where, she didn't grow up super wealthy or anything like that, but they had saved up, and her parents were going to take them to Disney for the first time and all these different things. And I don't know exactly what happened, but the sisters made a mistake, and the parent says, if you do that, you're not going to Disney. They did that, and guess what? They didn't go to Disney. All right. So that's a stake in the ground to show respect, and like, no, there's consequences to things, right? And I'm stuck with it. So same thing in our family. There's been several times where it's like, hey, if you do X, you're not getting this result or the trip or whatever it is. And we stand by that. And I think a lot of times parents are just like, you're not going to do this, and then they go back and do it, right? Or you're not going to get this, and then I think that hurts them. So that's some of the groundwork that we, as Jeff was talking, I was thinking about that we do at home, so they can feel loved, know there's consequences to things, and know that that we don't just love them as a family, but as an individual. A couple of popped up.
Yeah, I'll pick up on a word that I think all three of you guys used, and that's intention, being intentional. And this year for me, sometimes I do a word of the year thing. I don't know if you guys do that, but this year for me, it was intentional. And it was intentional work, intentional in my marriage, intentional with my relationship with the Lord, and intentional as dad. And, Will, my oldest, is adopted from Ethiopia. He's 13. Kylie's 12. They're very close in age. And so, Allan, this is, I've always tried to spend the time, be present when I'm there. I don't always get that perfectly done, by the way, but I've tried to. This year, as they're making this journey from childhood to, adolescence and then into adulthood, I'm trying to be really intentional, study, what different people who have been through this path, take people to coffee, that have been good dads, and just learn from them, and learn from these guys and other peers who are going through it as well. And I this year came up with a program that, I'm doing in terms of daily devotionals. And look, I'm traveling right now, obviously, so I'm not getting it in, tomorrow morning. But when I'm there, we're doing it, getting it in, getting the time. And I just feel like for 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids in middle school, such a tough age anyway, being able to start that. And Jeff mentioned it with Asher, be intentional about getting this time to start on this journey together, and then use that devotional time intentionally to talk about topics that they're going through and they're going to go through. And both Raul and Jeff hit on this whole shift from childhood to adulthood is a shift from a life of ease, really, to a life of difficulty, challenges. I mean, the scripture says we're going to have tough times. Life's not fair. We're going to have hard times. So how are you going to deal with it? What are you going to do? And really, that's our job, is to prepare these kids for whatever the Lord has for them. And this trip was such a great kickstart for that, for the three kids that, were able to go on this one. So that's I think, Allan, what I'm trying to do, and weave it all in together. And in addition to that, let these kids know. Here's one of the great outcomes for this trip that I wasn't prepared for. I knew that, Kylie was going to get visibility into a different culture and hopefully gain some wisdom and lose some naivete, I guess you have living, growing up in America, and that all happened. But what I didn't really expect, we've been going to Uganda for 14 years, right? With Man Up. And that's 14 years of relationships, 14 years of investment, time, talent, treasure, talk. And we haven't talked about that as much at home as what she got to experience. And for her eyes to open up and meet these friends and these pastors who, by the way, were over the top gracious, talking about us, and the impact we've made. But for Kylie to see, look, my life isn't just about me, which was the goal, to see the rest of the world. It's actually, I'm part of a family that God's using, working in and through. And then in addition to that, there's a bigger family, the Jesus following family that I'm a part of, that is on the front lines doing this work for orphans and widows in Africa. And then you have the eternal family, right? This, like, the eternal story. She now knows that she is an important part of a story so much bigger than her. And that's one of the things that we've talked about. She didn't really articulate well tonight, but that was just a really cool outcome and something we're trying to intentionally drive home.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the questions I have for you guys is, like, so obviously you took these 3 on, but you guys have the other kids. Is it a personality thing that the other kids just aren't the type, like they don't really want to? Do you guys have plans to take them? You know, like, what does that look like? And then also, you just spent 2 weeks of this intentional, intimate time with one of your kids. How do you then ensure that the other kids, when you come back, feel some sort of still like intentionality without feeling like they just didn't get as much of dad as they like to?
Yeah, look, every kid's different. You know, it's kind of coaching leadership 101 is you treat everybody differently and you meet them where they need to be. My 13-year-old son needs more of my time right now than my other 2 kids. So coming back from Africa, I've really been intentional to spend the time, you know, with him. And he did not want to go. Hey, you want to climb Kili? No, absolutely not. Zero interest in doing that. And he's also adopted from Ethiopia. And right now, just on his journey, he doesn't want to go over there, doesn't want to experience that. Is he going to? You bet. You bet he's going to. And within the next couple of years, because it's really important. And being able to, and again, this is one of the outcomes that has been a huge blessing, being able to talk to him about Asher's experience, his birth mom. And it's just created rich conversation for Will and I. And so he's 13. Braden's 10. He needs time in a little bit different way, and we're getting that through sports and other things that I'm coaching his team. So, but yeah, you've got to, again, coming back to that word intentional. It's been really important for me, at least in my family, to make sure that I'm meeting them where, at least I think, and where God's leading me to what they need. So it's a good point.
That's good.
Yeah, and exactly what Jason said. It's each child is an individual, and you have to understand your child, and that doesn't come by willy-nilly. That comes by studying them. Like, study what they love, what they enjoy, and meet them there. Right? You know, if I take my oldest Adriana, you know, when we do our date nights, it's Barnes and Noble or BAM books a million, right? Like, we get a coffee and a book, and we just sit there and we'll read and then we'll chat. And that's, you know, if I do that with Atlas, I mean, he loves reading, but that's not what he wants to go on date nights with me, right? Like, when we go out, it's like he wants to go and jump and throw the ball, and, you know. So every single child, you got to see, like, what is it that infuses them, that juices them up, and then point to that, right?
Jeffrey?
Yeah, I mean, ditto
Jolie
to all.
looking at climbing anytime soon?
Yeah, Jolie has no interest. You know, we're going through our own challenges right now with that one. She's spicy, and she'll let you know it. But we do. You know, you asked about, like, how do you make sure, and gosh, intentional seems like a really cliche word, but it is a really good word, because you know, we have a big calendar that we put up, and with my son, he kind of needs, because we spend a lot of time with sports and, you know, things of that nature, I get a lot of that time. So with my daughter, I have to create those moments a little more. And so on the big calendar, we've got a date night every month, right? Just like Raul was saying. And so that's our time to connect. And, you know, Q1 was a crazy one for me with this trip, or planning for the event, our big fundraising event that we're doing, you guys all know about. And I just realized we hadn't gone on our date. So literally, it was last Tuesday night. I just called my wife up. I said, "Hey, I'm taking Jolie out for ice cream. So don't tell her, it'll be a surprise." But yeah, it's just stuff like that, right? Where you have to make sure, and we've only got 2 kids, so it's a little easier, I think, when you've got 4 or 5. Some people do, it does get a little harder, but that's where I think as men, we don't have the luxury of making excuses in this area, right? Like if you're going to have 5 or 6 kids, it's like, okay, I may not be able to give them all the same amount of time, but I can give them something that they need. And that's where it goes back to knowing your kid. You know, maybe some of them likes gifts, and like you bring them a gift from a trip, they're like all over. You thought of me while I was away. Wow, that's amazing. This is so cool. Like you bring me
Yeah.
something, I'm like, cool. Like let's go hang out, right? Like let's go do something together, or like why don't you just tell me you love me? You know, affirm me or something, right? So it's just knowing your kids, I think, is a good one, and but no excuses. You got to get it done. You got to find a way.
And I'm never disappointed that I spent the time, right? Like you always come back and it's such a great time, joy-filled time. Love being around them for different reasons individually, but you're never disappointed. I think one of the challenges I have, guys, I mean, you guys are leaders in your organizations as well. I really enjoy working. I love it. And I love working with the team. I love the work that I do. And it's very easy for me to fall in the trap of I'm a provider and I'm working. And look, I'm trying to do all the right things as a dad. And at the same time, it's like, oh man, I just lost track of time in the calendar. I do. I struggle with that. You got to block it off.
Yeah, Jason, to your point with that, and Jeff, with the excuses, kind of putting those two things together. Yeah, I love what I do, you know, and but I can't allow that to interfere with the home life. And this is a very specific example. You know, right now we're in a season where my 2 middle ones, their mom and them before bed, they read Harry Potter together, right? So I take the little one, Asa, she's 6, and I put her to bed, and we'll read, and typically we'll like do 1 or 2 worship songs. And sometimes I'm beat. I'm tired at night. You know, I get up at 4:45 a.m. I go all day and then get home, and I think to myself, oh, do I really have to do this right now? Can I just like put her in bed, say goodnight, and go, right? And every single time I say, no, there's no excuses here. You got to bring it. You got to bring the energy. You got to be here for her.
Yeah.
And I do that. And as I'm sitting there, something just comes over me. And it's just like, man, what a sweet moment in time. Like I never feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. To your point, right, Jason? It's always like, you don't make the excuse, you go do it, and then the reward is there. And you're like, yeah, this is it. Like that moment in bed. And sometimes I fall asleep right there next to him. I'm so tired. But those few moments right there, I mean, there's a sweetness there that you just don't get when you make the excuse, when you just breeze by it, right? And I think those things will pay dividends later, right? In the relationship. And so.
And that's those are little things, Alan, when you're like, you know, what are you guys doing at home? That's it. Like it's not rocket science, and there's no secret sauce. It's, hey, when you're prompted to spend an extra couple minutes in bed, you know, do it. When you're prompted to grab them and take them to Lowe's, spend the time, do it. And you shouldn't feel guilty when you are at work and doing the things you need to do, or, you know, I'm working right now, I'm traveling. I don't feel guilty about it. And when I come home, I'm going to be home and be with them. But you got to, for lack of a better term, grind for those moments and make sure that you don't take them for granted.
And can we just agree on this too? Like, having a good wife makes it so much easier to be a good father. Like when your wife, like, so we have 3, and all of them are under 4. So our twins, yeah,
You're in it right now.
yeah, our twins left apart. I mean, Jeff, there's a few times that our girl, when she was sick, she'd be in the studio with Jeff and I. Like, she needs a hug every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's just her. And then our boy, our older boy, he just like, he'll just go do a puzzle and he's chilling. But my wife, when I'm just kind of exhausted, and she's just like, Alan, like, you need to take 5 minutes and go do that puzzle with him. And I'm like, but I'm so tired. Can I just give her the hug that she needs? And so what we started doing is, like, even if I am tired, the twins will ask, like, hey, daddy, can you sleep on the floor? And so I'll just take 30 minutes and sleep on the floor next to them while they're in their beds. and that's enough for them in that moment. And obviously there's other nights where we do like a glow stick party because my wife is amazing at just planning out the night, and leaning on each other's strengths. So because what I'm hearing, I mean, you know, Jason, while you're traveling, your wife is holding the fort down.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that that's something that sometimes our culture doesn't teach young men, is that you're not just dating a girlfriend. Like, you are dating your life partner that's going to help you rear your children and make your job as a father so much easier. And I'd love for you guys to talk about a little bit about that, because when you guys were gone for 2 weeks, that's who you're leaning on, right?
Most important decision other than putting trust in Christ. Most important decision in a man's life is who they marry. Period.
Yep.
End of story. For all of those reasons. And yeah, for the single guys, while they're dating, don't waste time on somebody that's not going to be that person for you. Don't waste time. When you know that they're not that person, move on. That's the advice I'm going to be giving my boys when they're of that age, because it is the most important decision.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, my wife has got a one of those little signs that you pick up at, you know, one like Bucky's or something, and it says wine, you know, making up for bad choices in life partners, you know, or something like that. It's just like, you have you got one, right? Like, you've got one life partner. I mean, and obviously divorce happens and things happen, and everybody, each of us on this call have experienced that in different ways in our families. But it's a forever thing. And what I have learned is that, you know, whatever like you guys were like before the marriage is how you're going to be in the marriage. Like, in other words, like, don't anticipate, well, when we get married, like, everything is going to be better, because there were a lot of red flags, quite frankly, between me and my wife beforehand. And I'm thinking, well, we'll figure that out as we go along. And there is some truth to that. But, like, you don't change who you are. Like, your personality is your personality, and God can do a work, and he can redeem, like, the broken pieces. There's no doubt about it. And I do think, like, we should be very careful with that choice. And thankfully, God has been gracious in my marriage. And I mean, I love my word, 24 years and a couple of months, right? And it's hard to believe that's been 24 years, but they have been rocky. Many of those years were rocky. So I think, yes, we are grateful for our wives. You know, I don't travel as much as Jason does. But I do have these, you know, several stints a year where I'm gone for 2 weeks, you know, at a time, like long periods of time, because I'm in Africa or wherever. And in the beginning, it was difficult, but she came to embrace it as, no, this is Jeff's work and this is his ministry. And my ministry, I don't need to go on the trip myself. My ministry is to let him fulfill God's purpose for his life. So to your point about having a good woman, like, and it took her a while to get there. And I think sometimes we quit too soon, right? Like, we give up and then we say, well, we're just not compatible. Well, you know what? There's a lot of times I'm not compatible with my wife too, right? But you just have to keep forging ahead and not giving up and trusting the Lord in it. So,
hey, Jeff, has Liza gotten to the point where it's our ministry and you're the one out doing it?
Absolutely, that's where she's at. She said those very words. She's like, she would say, my ministry is supporting you in your work. So this is really our work, like our ministry together. So she's used that exact phrase.
A quick story, and then Raul, you can jump in. You know, the very first man-up trip that I went on, I wasn't going to go. It was a high school friend. These guys know Mitch, and we caught up because we were both adopting from Ethiopia. And I came home, and for those that know Jana, I mean, we're very complimentary. She is not outgoing. She is not strong in her opinion of things. She goes with the flow and is happy to be supportive in most things. So I came home and she's like, hey, how was the call with Mitch? I said, it was great. Oh, by the way, he invited me on this mission trip to Africa. And she goes, oh, you're going? And I was like, what? I was like, no, I'm not. So this going on at work, all this stuff. She's like, "Oh no, you're going," and she was reading David Platt's Radical book.
Oh,
If you want to wreck your life, read that book, right?
yeah.
So I was like, okay, here we go. And look where we're at now, 14, 15 years later on a podcast talking about all of the adventures that have come as a result of, her telling me you're going on this trip.
Yeah.
Pretty
Awesome.
pretty good outcome there.
Yep.
Alan, I'll take a little bit of a spin on this. I think yes, right. Our wives are amazing,
Mhm.
and in a lot of marriages, us as men, we take that for granted.
Yeah.
And I would say that, one of the things that I dislike the whole word self-improvement. All right. I think that's we throw that around a lot, and I am a self-improvement guy. I love that whole concept, but the wording I don't like, because I think one of the things as husbands that we have to do and continually do is not just self-improvement to become a better husband. I think it's more, the word should be self-awareness. We have to become more self-aware of where we're falling short, so that we can then lift and support our wives up. Right. And I think the more self-aware that we can become as men in our own households, and that's different for everybody. So for some that might be counseling, for some that might be having a friend like Jeff, who just recently just spoke into me, like, you're not listening. Literally, he said, you're not listening. I remember this not so long ago, and I had to take a step back, and I'm saying, he's right, I'm not listening. I'm still talking, and he's trying to tell me something, right? And the more self-aware we can become, I think the better husband we become, because we see where she needs support, where she needs to be lifted up, and I think that makes them even a better wife, right? When they feel that support and that. So yes, they'll come in as great women to our lives and our relationship, but man, if we can build our self-awareness and then be humble enough to know, hey, here's the gap, and let me work on that, then you start to lift them up to places where, man, it just becomes, amazing, right? I don't know what else to say about that, but yeah.
There's that aspect of just like, this isn't my wife just supporting my ministry. This is us as a team, both figuring out like, hey, I feel God is calling me this way. What is God doing in your life? How can I champion that? And how do we make it all work? And it might be different seasons of it, but regardless, I want you to be obedient to what the Lord's calling you to do in your life as well. So I love that, because I think each of you, when it comes to your wives, it's different. How it plays out is different, because our journeys are different, the personalities are different, and so the callings are different. Kind of bringing it back to Mount Kilimanjaro and the trip, because I really want, obviously, for us to highlight that. Not even just as fathers, not even as husbands, but just as men, the impact of this trip. And I know you guys have talked about this before on your first one, but I'd love for you to highlight that on this episode before we wrap everything up. Like, just as men and as Christian men, did you learn new things? And not even just including your kids, but just in the trip alone, like, what does it look like? And what would you say to the people that are looking to go in, what would it be, 2027, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll start, if you guys don't mind. And the first time I went on this trip, I had very similar story to Jason. I came home. My wife had just had our fourth at the time, so we have a baby at home. And at the time, she's just getting she co-founded a school, so the school is just getting started. All this stuff's going on, and this crazy guy here, Jeff, comes to me and says, "Hey, we're taking this trip and thinking about climbing the Kilimanjaro." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm in." Like, yes. And then I went home, like, there's no way. Like, so we're having dinner at the table, and I just said, "Hey, Jeff's doing this thing with Man Up and Go," and then she looks at me and she says, "Yeah, you got to go." Right. And then she tells me, remember years ago, we had written down some dreams and some goals. And one of your dreams was that you wanted to climb mountains.
No way.
So back then it was for you. Now it's for something so much bigger. You got to go.
Wow.
And the Holy Spirit working in her and through her to tell me that, I went on the trip. And when you ask the question about what did you learn, what did you get out of it? I think when you go on this trip, and you're able to spend a week in nature with nothing else around you, right? No TV, social media, all that stuff's gone. And you're going through something so difficult and so hard. There's something that happens to your connection with Jesus, with and through that Holy Spirit. Something happens that's intangible. And I don't think that there's words you can put to that. But I do remember coming back, and I don't know, maybe a month into being back at home, my wife wrote me this whole like page of things that she has seen that was different, and it said things like you're a different man, you're a better father, you're a better husband, you're all these kind of things that she was just affirming me. And it's not like I can sit back and say this is what I learned on the trip, right? But I think what the biggest takeaway is the connection that you create between you and your heavenly Father. That's an intangible that you can't mimic anywhere else, right? Other than when you're spending that time alone in a struggle and you have nothing else to lean on but in prayer and saying, Lord, you're the one that's getting me through this, because I can't in my own strength. There is 0% chance that I'm getting through this. So that's my takeaway. There's just something to when you're that connected to him that it just grows you in ways that you don't even know or see.
Yeah, we have to pick up on what Raul said. When we prep people to go on these trips, we just say, hey, just prepare being uncomfortable, right? You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And you go into it knowing that and not really knowing what it means. It's going to be a physical challenge. But, man, every one of these trips, Allan, the Lord put me in different environments where I've just been uncomfortable. And sometimes it's a conversation with another man on the mountain. And that's what it was this trip. But also, in Uganda, speaking to a group of 500 Ugandans about what it means to be a Christ follower and a husband and a father. And I don't know, I'm not comfortable having that conversation. But on the mountain, there's one individual there, and we're built to be in community. And that's the other thing. To Raul's point, you step away and you get days, hours and days with these people on this mountain, and you get to know them, and it just accelerates friendships. And, when the Bible verse, which is used as a cliche sometimes now, iron sharpens iron, it's real. It's absolutely real. And you get on that mountain and you start, expressing and being vulnerable and building those relationships. And there was one guy on the mountain who talked to me about his challenges as a dad because of how his dad was and acted. And, it was uncomfortable for me because I didn't know what to say to him, but you end up building this relationship and working through it together. So that's it for me, is that I just am stretched. And to Raul's point, you're stretched. And when you're stretched, that's when you deepen your relationship with Jesus. And these guys here, when you talk about iron sharpens iron. And by the way, I learned on Friday from Tim Tebow, I'm name dropping here, but from Tim Tebow, I mentioned that quote because I was talking about these guys in the trip. And he said, the second iron means face, is what he said, at least. So it means iron sharpens your face, which means you've got to be close. And Tim Tebow got in my face, and anybody's been like fire in his eyes talking about the importance of man's role in society, for the least of these, right? And for him, it's special needs, and it's foster, it's adoptive, and trafficked kids. And man, he was this far from me, and he's like, it's literally a sword scraping your face, and sharpening you to do what God has for you. And that's what these guys are doing. For me, that's what they did on the mountain. And for me, Allan, that was it. Coming back, just I'm a better dad, husband, Christ follower, business leader. You mentioned the relationship as a result of the 2 weeks with these guys and the others that were on the trip.
For sure.
Well, we're certainly not going to question Tim Tebow on anything. So I'm just going to take his word on that one. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to add. These guys are super wise, and I mean that with all sincerity. They're really wise, and anything they say, any man would be, smart to listen to. I think when I think about the big benefit, and I mentioned this previously, so sorry for being repetitive, but I think we're slow learners, so I'll say it again. But I I look at my faith as a three-legged stool, and I've got my scripture reading, I've got my prayer time, and then I've got my brothers, like accountability with other men. And without any one of those things working actively in my life, I'm failing. Like the stool of my faith is not working. So it's like, it's not that it's just kind of working. It's like the whole thing isn't working. I'm ineffective everywhere. And what the trip does for me is I am able to see how other men live. I am able to see how other men interact. When things get hard, how do men respond? When things are easy, how do men respond? You get tired. There's different environments, different landscapes, and how do you pull through? I mean, I remember the first trip. I'm gonna tell a story. These guys know it. We were on day 4, and just the natural way that the day separated. You had 2 groups. So we started as one and we finished as 2. And the group that got there first waited for the second group as they came in. And as they came in, one of our guys was like, "That's effing bullshit." And he got after us because he was mad that one of the groups had kind of pulled away. And meanwhile, I was in that group. I think Jason was. I don't know, Raul. Were you in the front group? Do you remember this? You were so like 3 sheets to the wind. You probably don't remember where you were.
I don't remember what group I was in. I remember this, but I don't remember.
He was in a group of 1.
I was in my own group.
Raul was being carried by 2 guides.
Yeah, he was being carried by the porters at that point. But like, I just remember thinking, gosh, we weren't trying to do that at all, right? Like, we were with our guide, we were walking with our guide, and I was kind of trying to do everything that Danny, our guide, whatever Danny said to do is what I was trying to do. If he said to eat, I ate. If he said to drink, I drank. If he said march on, I marched on. And it was just a different, this guy, he was from the military, and it was like, hey, leave no man behind or whatever. And I wasn't thinking about that way. Jason wasn't thinking about it that way, but there was just kind of a miscommunication. And it was just interesting how he responded, right? And then how I responded, because at first I'm like, bro, what's your problem? Like that's how I immediately responded. But what it did, it gave us an opportunity to later come back at lunch and be like, hey, had a little miscommunication out there on the mountain. Let's talk about it, right? And so instead of like coming to fisticuffs and like all of that, we were like, no, let's, like in my home, we always say, hey, do you need 10 seconds right now? Like if they're getting elevated, it's like, hey, do you need to take a 10-second break? Do you need 10 seconds?
I'm picturing Jeff saying that to a full-grown military man.
You would have taken Jeff. That's why I didn't go to fisticuffs.
Trust me. You've heard of the term stand down, so I stood down. But it was good, right? We had a chance to do that. So I don't know. For me, that's what it was. It was interesting because we had obviously the kids on this trip, and we had 3 women plus Kylie, so 4 females. And I think both of these men will echo it. Those ladies, 2 of whom are single, they could not have been more complimentary about the men on this trip. Wow. And they were just like, you guys, in tears, you guys have restored my faith that there are good men out there.
No way.
That there are men who love Jesus. There are men who stand by their word. And I'm watching the way you're interacting with your kids, the way you're interacting with others, the way you love. And this is not to pat ourselves on the back, right? There's none of that. Sure. These were her words. That's why I go, right? Is that kind of like just real talk, authenticity, like this, just something that you're not going to get when you're in your normal everyday experience. And so pulling yourself out of the everyday norms, putting yourself in an environment where, to Jason's point, you're uncomfortable. Oh man, it just makes the trip so sweet. So for me, it's that accountability, that third leg of the stool, and that meeting of other brothers and the ironing side, all of that, I think. And to Raul's point, yeah, like if you go there and don't experience God, I can't help you. Like I've done all I can do for you. To get you on the top of Kili and you don't see God, I don't know. Check your heart, bro.
And depending on how you can deal with altitude, you might just meet him.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
Hey, we had a guy that was in the hospital for 3 days after this.
No way.
On this trip, yeah.
Selling 2027, Jason.
Yeah, exactly. How old is he 29, I think.
Yeah, he's like 30. He's like
way.
Allan's age. Yeah.
Good shape, like in good shape too. You just don't know how this altitude's going to mess with you.
Yeah.
And, he didn't get to do the Uganda part of the trip because he was in the hospital still in Tanzania.
No way.
And by the way, his best buddy who was on the trip with him, they live in different states now. He's like, I'm not going to Uganda either. I'm staying with my bro here. And that was incredible. Just to see him step up in that way. And yeah, so
real brotherhood.
yeah, and it's, again, this is not an easy hike, right? These kids did amazing. It's hard. It's putting guys in hospitals, 29-year-old men. So it was awesome just to be there for one another, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. There's really nothing like it. Really, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the theme is obviously this is discipleship, right? Doing life alongside one another is basically what you guys did. You modeled it for the children. The women got to see what godly men do, and so their thoughts on godly men was just completely restored. And then for you guys, you're getting to live it out and still sharpen each other. So everybody that's thinking about even going 2027, like, listen to this. This is exactly what we're talking about when it comes to just something so pivotal for you, something to challenge yourself, because at the end of the day, we just want to worship and follow Jesus. We want to see what God is doing internationally because his church isn't just in the U.S. And then obviously be a part of the mission of fighting for the fatherless. So thank each and every one of you guys for especially the beginning of it, modeling fatherhood. And thank you guys for watching this episode of the Patros Podcast. Do y'all have anything you want to say before we say bye to the viewers?
Thanks, Allan.
Sweet. God bless y'all.
Thank you, buddy.